Cassandra Monroe had perfected the art of being invisible. For 3 years at Sterling Enterprises, she had arrived before sunrise and left long after the city lights flickered on. Her desk sat in the corner of the marketing floor, positioned where natural light barely reached. She knew every coffee preference of the executive team, memorized the quarterly reports before anyone else read them, and could predict market trends with frightening accuracy. Yet when Vincent Harlow, the company's billionaire CEO, passed her desk each morning, his eyes never paused. She was furniture to him, functional and forgettable. The office smelled of expensive cologne and ambition that particular Tuesday morning. Cassandra reviewed the campaign proposal she had spent 3 weeks developing. The presentation was flawless. Charts demonstrated projected revenue increases of 40%. Her research covered every demographic detail. She had even prepared backup strategies for potential investor questions. This was her chance to finally be seen, to prove she was more than the woman who refilled the coffee station. Vincent swept into the conference room like winter itself. His tailored charcoal suit matched his personality, sharp and cold. The executives straightened in their chairs. Cassandra sat near the end of the table, her laptop open, her heart beating against her ribs like a trapped bird. She had rehearsed her opening statement 50 times in the mirror at home. "Let's begin," Vincent announced, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had never been told no. "I want innovative thinking today, not recycled ideas." The first 3 presentations passed with minimal comment. Then Gregory from sales stood, fumbling through slides that clearly needed more work. Vincent tore into each weakness with surgical precision. The room grew tense. Cassandra's turn approached. She stood when called, her legs steadier than she expected. "Mr. Harlow, I've developed a multi-platform campaign targeting the emerging market demographic that our competitors are overlooking. The data shows—" "Monroe." Vincent's interruption sliced through her sentence. "When I want analysis from someone without field experience, I'll ask for it. Sit down." The words landed like physical blows. Heat flooded her cheeks. Around the table, eyes dropped to papers and screens. A few executives exchanged glances that held pity mixed with relief that they weren't the target. Cassandra's throat tightened. She had faced his indifference countless times, but this public dismissal cut deeper. She gathered her materials with shaking hands and lowered herself back into her chair. The meeting continued as though nothing had happened. Vincent moved to the next agenda item without pause. Cassandra stopped hearing the words around her. She stared at her laptop screen, seeing nothing but the reflection of a woman who had just been erased in front of her peers. When the meeting finally ended, she was the last to leave, waiting until the room emptied before allowing herself to breathe. An unexpected encounter. Saturday arrived wrapped in autumn colors. Cassandra woke without an alarm for the first time in months. No urgent emails demanding her attention, no presentations to perfect. She made coffee in her small apartment kitchen and decided that today she would do something for herself. The neighborhood bookstore had always beckoned her, but she never had time to browse properly. The shop occupied a converted townhouse with creaking wooden floors and shelves that reached the ceiling. The scent of paper and ink welcomed her like an old friend. She wandered through the aisles, running her fingers along book spines, feeling the tension of the week slowly dissolve. In the philosophy section, she reached for a volume on finding purpose and meaning. "That's a good choice," a warm voice said beside her, "though I prefer the one right next to it." Cassandra turned to find a man about her age with kind eyes and an easy smile. He wore a faded university sweater and held a stack of books under one arm. His appearance was unremarkable in the best way, comfortable rather than calculated. "I'm Thomas," he offered, pulling the neighboring book from the shelf. "Thomas Way. And before you ask, yes, I really do read philosophy for fun. It's either a character strength or a fatal flaw, depending on who you ask." She laughed, surprising herself with the sound. "Cassandra Monroe, and I think it counts as a strength." They talked between the shelves for 20 minutes that felt like 5. Thomas worked as a software developer for a nonprofit that built educational tools for underfunded schools. He spoke about his work with genuine passion, not the performative enthusiasm she witnessed at Sterling Enterprises. His questions about her life felt sincere rather than obligatory. "I was supposed to meet my sister for coffee," Thomas said eventually, checking his phone, "but she just canceled. Would you want to grab a cup? I promise I don't usually invite strangers to coffee within the first half hour of meeting them." "Usually?" Cassandra raised an eyebrow. "Well, there was that one time at the library, but that's a story for coffee." She agreed, partly because his smile made her feel safe, and partly because returning to her empty apartment suddenly seemed unbearable. They walked 3 blocks to a small cafe with mismatched chairs crowded around wooden tables. Thomas ordered something complicated with extra foam. Cassandra chose simple black coffee. "So what do you do, Cassandra?" Thomas asked as they settled into a corner table. "I work in marketing," Cassandra said carefully, leaving out the company name and the humiliation that still burned. "It's demanding." "That's usually code for either exciting or soul-crushing," Thomas observed with gentle humor. "Which is it?" The question hung in the air. Cassandra looked into her coffee cup, watching steam curl upward and disappear. No one at work ever asked her these things. No one seemed to care whether she found meaning in her 60-hour weeks. Certainly Vincent never wondered if his employees felt fulfilled. "Honestly," she met Thomas's eyes, "I'm not sure anymore. I used to think if I worked hard enough, proved my worth enough, that recognition would follow. But lately I wonder if I'm just invisible." Thomas didn't offer empty reassurances or dismiss her feelings. He simply nodded. "I think a lot of people feel that way, like they're shouting into a void and nobody bothers to listen. But here's what I believe. The right people will always see you. Maybe you've just been standing from in front of the wrong audience." Something shifted in Cassandra's chest. The afternoon stretched before them, full of conversation and laughter that came easily. For the first time in 3 years, she felt seen, not as an assistant or an employee number, but as a person with thoughts worth hearing and feelings worth considering. When they finally parted ways at sunset, Thomas asked for her number. "I'd really like to see you again," he said, "if that's something you'd want." Cassandra saved his contact in her phone and walked home with a lightness she hadn't felt in years. The city looked different somehow, less gray and more full of possibility. She didn't know yet that this chance meeting would become the catalyst for everything that followed. All she knew was that for one afternoon she had been visible, and it felt like coming home to herself. 3 months passed like pages turning in a favorite book. Cassandra found herself living in 2 completely different worlds. At Sterling Enterprises, she remained the forgotten assistant, the woman who arrived early and left late, whose brilliant ideas were absorbed into company strategy without acknowledgment. Vincent Harlow still passed her desk each morning without a glance, still interrupted her in meetings, still treated her contributions as background noise. But outside those glass walls, she discovered something she never expected to find. Thomas Way had become her constant, her refuge, her reminder that she was worth more than quarterly reports and dismissive glances. Their relationship had unfolded naturally, without the games or power dynamics that seemed to poison everything at her workplace. Thomas listened when she spoke. He remembered small details she mentioned in passing. He celebrated her ideas and encouraged her dreams. They spent weekends exploring farmers' markets and trying restaurants in neighborhoods neither had visited before. Thomas introduced her to his sister, Rachel, a high school teacher with the same gentle warmth. Cassandra met his parents over Sunday dinner, where his mother insisted on sending her home with containers of homemade dumplings. These simple moments filled spaces in her heart she hadn't realized were empty. Thomas never made her feel small. When she talked about work frustrations, he didn't minimize her feelings or suggest she was being too sensitive. He acknowledged the injustice of being overlooked while offering perspective that helped her see beyond the walls of Sterling Enterprises. Slowly, Cassandra began to understand that Vincent's inability to see her worth said everything about him and nothing about her actual value. The rooftop question. On a Friday evening in early autumn, Thomas asked Cassandra to meet him at his apartment building. She arrived to find him waiting by the elevator with a picnic basket and a mysterious smile. "Where are we going?" she asked as he pressed the button for the top floor. "You'll see," he promised, his eyes bright with something she couldn't quite name. The elevator opened onto the rooftop terrace. Thomas had transformed the space with string lights that cast a warm glow across the concrete. A blanket was spread out, with cushions arranged for comfortable seating. The city stretched below them, lights beginning to twinkle as dusk settled over the skyline. "Thomas, this is beautiful," Cassandra breathed, taking in the scene. They ate simple food, sandwiches and fruit and chocolate-covered strawberries. They talked about everything and nothing, the way they always did. Thomas told her about a new project at work, a reading program for elementary students. Cassandra shared a funny story about her neighbor's escape artist cat. The conversation flowed easily, punctuated by laughter and comfortable silences. As the sky deepened to indigo, Thomas grew quieter. Cassandra noticed his hands fidgeting with the edge of the blanket, a nervous gesture she'd never seen him before. "Cass," he began, using the nickname only he was allowed, "I need to tell you something." Her heart quickened. Thomas shifted to face her fully, taking both her hands in his. 3 months ago, I was just a guy buying philosophy books on a Saturday morning. I had no idea that reaching for a book next to yours would change my entire life. But it did. You did. He paused, his voice thick with emotion. You are the kindest, smartest, most resilient person I've ever known. You see beauty in small things. You work hard not for recognition, but because you care about doing things well. You make me want to be better, to see the world the way you do, with hope and possibility. Cassandra's eyes filled with tears. Thomas released one of her hands to reach into his pocket, pulling out a small velvet box. I know 3 months isn't very long by conventional standards, but when you find the person who makes you believe in forever, why wait? He opened the box to reveal a simple gold band with a modest diamond that caught the string lights and scattered tiny rainbows. Cassandra Monroe, will you marry me? The question hung in the air between them, full of promise and possibility. Cassandra looked at this man who had seen her from the very first moment, who had never made her beg for attention or prove her worth. Thomas wasn't offering her status or wealth or power. He was offering partnership, respect, and a love that didn't need to be earned because it was freely given. "Yes," she whispered, then louder, "Yes, Thomas, absolutely yes." He slipped the ring onto her finger with hands that trembled slightly. Then he pulled her close, and they sat on that rooftop under the stars, two people who had found each other by accident and chosen each other on purpose. The return to Sterling Enterprises. Monday morning arrived with its usual demands. Cassandra woke early, showered, dressed in her professional armor of a navy dress and blazer. But something was different. She looked at herself in the mirror and saw a woman who was loved, chosen, valued. The ring on her left hand caught the bathroom light. She considered leaving it home. The thought came automatically, the instinct to hide good things from a workplace that had only ever diminished her. But then she remembered Thomas's words on the rooftop. Why should she hide evidence of her happiness? Why should she make herself smaller to fit into Vincent Harlow's narrow view of who deserved attention? Cassandra wore the ring to work. The first person to notice was Jennifer from accounting, who squealed with delight in the elevator and demanded to see every detail. By the time Cassandra reached her desk, 3 more colleagues had offered congratulations. The attention felt strange but warming, like sunlight after a long winter. She settled into her morning routine, checking emails and preparing reports. At 9 o'clock exactly, Vincent emerged from the executive elevator. Cassandra didn't look up, expecting the usual dismissal of her existence. But this morning, his footsteps slowed as he passed her desk. "Monroe." His voice made her glance up. The changes in Vincent's behavior escalated with each passing day. Cassandra watched with a mixture of disbelief and growing frustration as the man who had rendered her invisible for 3 years suddenly seemed incapable of looking anywhere else. He found reasons to stop by her desk multiple times daily, asking questions about projects that had never warranted his attention before. He requested her presence at executive meetings where her role was unclear. Most disturbingly, he began assigning her tasks that required late evenings and weekend work, deadlines that seemed arbitrary and unnecessary. On a Tuesday afternoon, Vincent called her into his office. The space reflected his personality perfectly, all sharp angles and cold glass, with a view of the city that emphasized his position above everyone else. Cassandra entered with her tablet, assuming he needed a report or analysis. "Close the door," Vincent said without looking up from his computer. She complied, standing at a respectful distance from his desk. He finally turned to face her, and something in his expression made her instinctively take a step back. His usual cold control had cracked slightly, revealing something raw underneath.
"I've been reviewing your work from the past 3 years," he began, his fingers drumming against the desk surface. "Your market analyses have been consistently accurate. That campaign you proposed last month, the one I dismissed, would have increased our reach significantly." Cassandra waited, unsure where this conversation was heading. Vincent stood, moving to the window with his back to her. "I'm reassigning you. Promotion to senior strategist, your own office, 30% salary increase. You'll report directly to me." The offer should have thrilled her. 6 months ago, it would have felt like vindication, proof that her hard work had finally been recognized. But standing in Vincent's office, watching his reflection in the window glass, Cassandra felt only suspicion. "Why now?" she asked quietly. Vincent turned sharply. "What do you mean?" "I mean, Mr. Harlow, that I've worked here for 3 years. I've submitted dozens of proposals, stayed late countless nights, and exceeded every metric assigned to me. You've never once acknowledged my contributions. So I'll ask again, why now?" The directness of her questions seemed to catch him off guard. His jaw clenched. "I'm recognizing talent when I see it. Isn't that what you wanted?" "I wanted to be seen," Cassandra replied, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "I wanted my work to matter. But this promotion isn't about my work, is it?" "I don't know what you're implying." "Don't you?" She held up her left hand, letting the light catch her engagement ring. "This appeared, and suddenly I exist to you. Suddenly my ideas have merit. Suddenly you care about my career development." Vincent's face flushed, anger and something else flickering across his features. "You're reading too much into a business decision." "Am I?" Cassandra took a step closer to his desk, finding courage she didn't know she possessed. "Then explain the late-night assignments. Explain why you've asked about my wedding plans 3 times this week. Explain why you're suddenly concerned about whether I'm working too hard when you've never cared before." The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken truths. Vincent moved back to his desk, gripping its edge until his knuckles whitened. "I don't understand," he said finally, his voice rough. "I built this company from nothing. Every decision I make is calculated. I can't afford distractions or emotional complications. I trained myself not to see things that might make me weak." "So you chose not to see me," Cassandra finished, "until someone else did." Vincent looked at her then, really looked at her, and Cassandra saw something in his eyes she had never expected to find there. Vulnerability, regret, and yes, desire that came 3 years too late. "I notice you now. I can't stop noticing you. The way you bite your lip when you're concentrating, how you always arrive exactly 30 minutes before anyone else, that you take your coffee black because you think adding sugar is wasteful during work hours. I notice everything, Cassandra, and it's driving me insane." The use of her first name shocked her more than the confession itself. Cassandra shook her head slowly, processing the words she had once desperately wanted to hear. "Do you have any idea what you're saying? Do you understand what you're asking me to feel?" Vincent circled the desk, moving closer but not touching. "I'm saying I made a mistake. I thought keeping distance made me stronger, made my decisions clearer. I thought not caring about the people around me was what leadership required. But watching you with that ring on your finger, knowing you're building a life with someone else, I realized I was wrong." "You're not wrong," Cassandra said, her voice hard. "You're 3 years too late." "People can change," Vincent insisted, reaching for her hand. She pulled away sharply. "Can they? Because I spent 3 years trying to earn a shred of your respect. I worked myself to exhaustion. I endured your dismissals and your public humiliations. I made myself smaller and quieter, hoping that if I just proved myself enough, you might finally see me as human." "Cassandra, no." The word came out firm and final. "You don't get to do this. You don't get to suddenly discover feelings because another man valued what you threw away. That's not love, Vincent. That's ego. That's jealousy. That's you wanting something the moment it becomes unavailable." Vincent's expression hardened. "And this software developer, this Thomas Wee, is he better than me? Can he give you what I can't?" "He gave me something you never could," Cassandra replied. "He saw me from the very first moment, not my productivity or my usefulness, me, the person. He didn't need me to prove my worth or earn his attention. He offered it freely because he believes that's what people deserve." "So that's it. Vincent's voice held an edge of desperation. "You're choosing him? You're throwing away your career here for someone who probably can't even afford to take you to the restaurants I could?" The question revealed everything Cassandra needed to know. Even now, even attempting to express feelings, Vincent